at Town Hall. If you would like to join via Zoom, our webinar ID is 894-8156-7866. Do we have anyone for public comment? Peggy, anybody online?
No hands raised.
All right. We're going to move along to project updates, 19 West Road.
I can take that one. I included in your packet a last round of data, or I should say the most recent round of data on the initial lease up at Fair, as well as at 107 Main Street. But Fair at this point is fully leased, and the household demographics are in your packet. And then, not to steal Mr. Flood's thunder, but I also got those numbers.
Go away.
I also got those numbers from David Quinn over at 107 Main Street, just so you could look at the two developments side by side. But they are still actively leasing 4 of the one-bedroom units over at 107. I think he said they have about half of these households here moved in, and about the other half who have signed leases but won't move in until February.
Great, thank you. 107 Main Street, anything to add, Scott?
Well, the only thing to add is that they're in the finishing up some discussions with the lenders on the project so that they can complete the closeout, which is required then to turn the property over to Hack Property Management for, the long-term ongoing management of the property. But other than that, and as Elizabeth noted, the 4 units that remain to be leased, it's a pretty good situation over there.
I have a question. There were so many applicants for each of the units. Is it surprising that we have 4 units that aren't leased?
I mean, I can take that, and Elizabeth, I would defer to you. The applicants aren't all qualifying.
Right.
So there's, such stringent measures that have to go through in vetting those applications. So that would be my guess. I don't know if you have any more information.
No, exactly. Just because there are many applicants, but they are not necessarily qualified, so they have to go through that process, and like you would leasing up any apartment, background checks and credit history.
Other questions for 107 Main? Governor Prince, 6676 Route 6A. Tom?
I have not heard from David and Charlie in a while. I mailed them this morning again, and
Yeah, so David gave me an update alongside with this one at 107 Main Street. We did assist them in bidding the demo for Governor Prince. They have not yet made that award. So that is still in process. What has been holding up their permitting is trying to get a project eligibility letter from EOHLC. Apparently they were issued a draft of the letter, so they know it's coming, but they do not yet have a final PEL.
that's been, 6 months now? We've been waiting for it?
6 months.
I think we initially issued a letter of support for both project eligibility letters back in March of 25, I want to say. And they immediately got the homeownership PEL, but are still waiting for EOHLC to issue the homeownership.
So that's a significant bottleneck.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Once again, it's so easy to say, let's fix this, right? But do we have any political phone numbers that we can call? I mean, we have legislative representatives.
Yes, we have been in touch constantly with Housing Assistance POA to see how we can assist in that process. I know they have been doing their own advocacy, and I cannot explain.
Do you have any
taking so long.
anecdotal
I mean, I kn-
information about.
I know that office is really overwhelmed. Like
Well,
there
that's
are a
what I was
lot,
gonna ask.
there are a lot of housing developments under construction and in permitting right now in Massachusetts, which is a great thing. But
I'm not
this-
trying to put you on the spot here, Elizabeth. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, and
I'm shocked that the state would allow this bottleneck to develop on critical housing projects when all the lip service is being paid in the press and from our politicians is just the opposite. So I guess my question is, is there anyone in the town who can speak, or anyone in the county that can speak with one of our legislators about this? I mean, we have these people who are elected representatives, and they're all foursquare behind all of this stuff. I guess I'm just saying,
Legislators.
I'm sorry?
Says any of us can speak to our legislators.
Well, I'm just saying, has that been done? Are they aware that this is a growing problem, and maybe the state needs to examine this office to see how many other projects are backlogged?
I have asked the same questions
Yeah.
and had those same conversations myself. They're excellent ones. I don't have an answer for you in terms of
Like
why
I say,
this is
I'm
happening.
sorry, you're caught in the middle on this one, but I'm amazed. But it's an example of the concept of red tape and whatever regulatory bottlenecks develop that seemingly, and when I hear things like, well, they've got a big backlog, well, backlogs get fixed when people get assigned to them. So the state is paying out money, the federal government is paying out money for these affordable housing projects. Yet we can't get them done because we have something going on at the state level. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Don't
Sorry.
apologize, as they're excellent questions to be asking.
I mean, just to add to that, 78 future units are coming with this project. Not 7 or 8, 78 right now, right? I mean, you'd think it would be getting a little bit of attention. So.
Here's another thing. I'm sorry. I'm blithering, I know, but the town has money, skin in the game on this. So there's time value of money that's being wasted. I mean, $1 million for 6 months, we borrow it 5-ish. That's 2.5%, that's $25,000. Anyway, sorry.
What is the exact name of the office, if we were to call a representative and say,
Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities.
Executive Office of Housing and
And Livable Communities.
Got a website.
Is it appropriate to ask for a motion that we, the trust, send a letter to said institution and say, or ask, what is the bottleneck and how we might resolve it?
Sure.
I think that's a
So
great
moved.
idea.
He,
We'd be on record.
Hold on,
Orleans,
let's get this done first.
so I move that we, the trust board, write a letter to the, name of the organization?
Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities.
Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to inquire as to the nature of the bottleneck and what can be done to remove it.
I would second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Well, further discussion?
It's a great idea,
Good
but
idea.
good luck.
Well, I mean, it's better than sitting on our hands.
Right.
But we should be doing this, at least on record.
Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Scott, are you drafting that? Are we all sending individual
Well, I
ones?
suppose I'm on the hook for it.
I'll help.
If I can get some guidance as to what the appropriate language might be, I would be happy to write it and have it for our, send it around mail for us to review and find schmeck and get it out.
I'd
Just
be,
keep your comments responding to one person.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to contact our representatives on behalf of the trust, if that couldn't hurt.
Couldn't hurt.
So Valerie, you said, like Ratsa Ruck, what's behind that? You have some experience with that group?
A bit, but I think it's just
Formality?
it is kind of just it is what it is currently. Anything else for 6676 Route 6A? Governor Prince?
Fortunately, no.
Right, 44 Main?
I don't have any updates. My office is going through and essentially looking at a zoning analysis for that project as it was initially designed under the new housing overlay to see if we were to pursue an RFP, how that might need to be modified to be in conformance to allow a project there to proceed by right.
All right, moving on to 22 Old Tote Road.
I'm happy to kick it off. Sort of maybe not going in order ABC, but just giving an update generally to the board. And I'll just sort of begin at the beginning. A lot of you are informed, but so obviously we had a purchase and sale with Bob and Marjorie for this property. The hope was to essentially put out an RFP and assign the right to purchase it to a new buyer who would rehabilitate the property into 4 units, 2 deed restricted, to own and manage. I think for a lot of reasons. So we put out an RFP. We received 1 responsive bid back, which was great. The bad news was the Sparrows felt like they could not essentially carry the property anymore. They were preparing to sell it, and the RFP that we got back, even though we have not made a recommendation on it, did not contemplate immediate assignment of the right to purchase. So we were in a situation where we felt like we had made a commitment and we had to close on the property. So we successfully closed on the property 2 Fridays ago. Closing went very smoothly. I have a sort of a post-closing meeting tomorrow with Attorney Ford to go over all the details. Just a few sort of minor things that came up dealing with rents and leases that we're straightening out. I was able to talk to the Orleans Housing Authority. They have agreed to manage the property for us on a short-term basis. So I talked to Tom and Alexis and got their authorization to enter into a short-term contract. It looks almost exactly like the one we have over at 24 Old Colony to manage that unit we own over there. But they will be doing essentially essential property management for us. And that, I think, pretty much sums up in terms of where we are in terms of the closing. In terms of the review committee recommendation, I facilitated that review committee that also included Mallory, Tom, George Meservey, our planning director, and Mike Solitro from the town manager's office. That group met and reviewed and made a recommendation on our 1 responsive bid from Housing Assistance Corporation. Now that we did finalize that recommendation, it does go to the trust. And should the trust choose to act on it, would go to the select board prior to making a notice of award. So I took the liberty of sort of summing up the proposal and some of the discussion in a memo to the board, but I'll certainly look to Tom or Mallory if you want to take a first shot at sort of updating, providing an update on the review of the proposal.
Want to go ahead? Well, first of all, I don't know if anybody's checked out the property. I did go and walked around, and I was, again, didn't see inside each location, but from a risk from the standpoint of the town, I really think, it's a good opportunity for us to acquire additional space. The only thing we talked about the meeting that we were hoping was only 2 of the 4 locations are deed restricted as of right now. We are hoping, and I think I think David Quinn and those guys are open to try to make it 4 deed restricted properties down the road, but only two properties right now are, I believe, are deed restricted, and I would hope we could get it up higher. But again, as far as this moved fast, right? And the closing was like the next day after we met.
We moved
But-
pretty quickly on the closing when we had to. We can move quickly when we have to.
That alarmed me that night, but then, fortunately, that day or a couple days before, I had walked the property again, and I think it's really a low-risk investment on our part. I think it's a great opportunity to get at least 2 units, if not more, down the road for affordable housing.
Great.
Mallory, I don't know if you.
I'd say it's worth noting, like, while there were some questions and maybe this wasn't perfect, we only had one bidder on this property, so it's a great idea.
So just in sum, to review, again, that housing assistance proposal, as Mallory noted, it was the one responsive proposal, and we can talk about why we think that is, why we only got the one bidder. We did sort of speak on that in an extended way when we met, but it was from Housing Assistance. Sort of the bottom line is they are seeking trust contribution of the property, as well as the amount that we paid in, as well as the amount that we paid in the sewer connection. They did provide a detailed pro forma, which is in your packet or in your which is in your packet. They outlined essentially that they anticipated that it would take an additional $474,000 in improvements to bring the property up to 4 units, and that they would finance the remainder of those through a conventional loan. So they're essentially matching what the trust investment in the property would be. And as Tom noted, our RFP, sort of our minimum was the 2 units, the one at 80, the one in 20, and they are providing that, but they are underwriting all the units, first of all, to be year-round, number one, and second of all, to be rented at $2,000 a month, which is well below maximum allowable rent for, at the 120 level and closer to 80 or 100, what you would see equivalent to an 80 or 100% AMI rent. So what we are getting is what we hoped for, which was, I think, naturally occurring attainable housing out of this, as well as the 2 deed restrictions. I hope you had a chance to take a look at the proposal, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Go ahead, Fran.
I'm trying to understand the transaction. This isn't a gigantic one, and
No.
I know, but are they going to retain ownership of this property?
Yes.
Put it in portfolio, essentially, put it on their balance sheet?
Correct. So if you had a chance to look at it, they provide property management services. Obviously, they do so already for 107 Main Street. But yes, they would take ownership and have ongoing management responsibility for the property.
So there is not a involvement of a taxable investor here who would qualify for subsidies for affordable housing tax credits.
Your question's a little over my head because I don't know exactly how buying and
Well,
selling tax credits
typically-
work. But they're a
They
not-for-profit
create an
organization.
LLC or something, and then an
Oh.
investor comes in, and then that way then they sell the tax credits and they defray the.
They're not proposing to pursue financing this way, again, through a conventional loan and a construction bridge loan.
Is there, what would be the existing law? Are there any regulations that require this to be permanently deed restricted?
So so essentially those come through the nature of the funding, of the trust funding source.
Okay.
And I shouldn't say it's an absolute requirement, but it is the policy of this board, and it was written into the RFP that if we are funding, they have to be affordable, and anytime we seek to fund affordable units, we seek them in perpetuity for essentially getting the most out of our public funds.
Okay, so in effect, there are really 2 parts to this, which is, ownership of the property being transferred or sold to Housing Assistance Corp.
Correct.
And it's basically for $1.
Correct.
So, I've said this before, but I think this is a classic example of something we should be thinking about, which is the next time we're confronted with this sort of transaction, what's to stop us from asking HAC to have a clause in this sales contract that if this is ever sold, we get a percentage of the profit? This would help to reimburse the town for the money it's put up to create an affordable housing opportunity. And if you create a series of these things, you get significant leveraging of your initiative because you get more capital to do the same thing again. I'd also mention that I've just asked the question, and it's easy to ask questions and make other people scramble. I don't mean it in that way, but I'm wondering, is there a reason we should be holding to permanent deed restriction? And suppose we were to put a term certain deed restriction on property. You try to imagine the pathway of property appreciation for a non-deed restricted property. It probably has a steeper slope than that for a deed restricted one. Now, the difference between that is there's some economic value that we're leaving on the table theoretically by not having the opportunity to sell it at a market price sometime in the future, notwithstanding the critical need to have affordable housing now. And I'd say parenthetically, and I'll finish, that I don't think we can really say what our affordable housing needs are going to be 10, certainly 15 years from now. So we're in a way assuming that we're straight lining the demand, the circumstances, a decade and a half or a decade or more, even more than that, certainly 30 years with a permanent restriction. That's all.
Yeah. Point taken, and we talked about this back in December. I would just say right now for this one, let's hold your thought, what you're talking about there, because if this was just an independent outside party buying this property, I would say maybe we should start some language right now. But Housing Assistance Corporation, their goal is to provide affordable housing. So your concerns there are my concerns as well. Again, I like where we're talking. I just think right now this is not, that's far from my thoughts on who's acquiring the one entity that made a bid on this property.
Just to follow up, and your point's taken, and I'm not advocating to reverse course here
Understood.
and hustle to create something like that now, but I think it's going forward. Similar transactions may be useful to think about this going forward. The other thing too is remember this: Housing Assistance Corporation is I said at another committee I was on. It's the boiler room of affordable housing on the Cape. That's all they've got. All kinds of initiatives, financial, otherwise. So they're absolutely an important organization. They just raised $5 million in capital, which came from, these were not investors, these were donations. So they have an audience, a population of people who have the same interests, but who are able to put up capital for them. We don't. We have to tax our citizens to get the capital that we invest. So comparing the two, I'd say we have a tougher job to arrive with money, with earnest money to create these projects. So, but that's always the reason why I'm thinking about this, is how do we stretch our dollars?
I think that's a good point, Fran.
I do.
Any other comments?
Well, I have a thought or a question. Thank goodness for HAC, because we've done well by them, by that organization, I should say. But is there an issue with our shortfall, if you will, of developers interested in pursuing projects? And that's a genuine question. I'm not asking a question to which I think I know the answer. But it is genuine. Is there an issue? Do we have an issue or an attraction problem with respect to developers for the future projects that we are no doubt going to be spearheading?
This is a very small project.
No,
This-
like
but
I
this
said,
isn't
I
the-
understand, but.
This isn't the first time we've
asking
only
more
gotten one
broadly is
response.
that We didn't have,
So-
we didn't have a ton of people teeing up for Governor Prince,
Yeah, and,
Three, right?
and
so.
sorry?
Is it three?
two,
Two.
two.
So again, it may be a naive question, but.
No, I think it's a really valid question and something that, I mean, at least I always have in the back of my mind. And, you know, the former chair set up a really engaging meeting with developers, which I think we need to revisit, again this spring. And, I know in the past we've done RFIs, which I think moving forward is a route that I would like to take, a request for, interest, information.
Interest.
And, you know, the other difficulty is there aren't a ton of organizations, there aren't a ton of developers who, especially in this, you know, economic climate, who are looking to go that route. We've seen it in Orleans where they've made projects smaller to avoid the affordability requirement. But I think, you know, the more we ask and the more we outreach, the more we'll learn. And learn why, you know, this was a very difficult project, it's small, but
Right.
we have seen other projects where we're not getting the amount of outreach that makes us think that we're going about it the right way.
So therefore, if that's the case, what can or should we do about it?
I think later in the spring, probably April or May, look to have one of those roundtable discussions again with, different developers. Maybe it becomes an annual thing that we do, to get those people in, see how the climate is looking for the next, you know.
Was there any feedback from the earlier meeting that is actionable or even interesting?
I mean, most of the concerns last year were just cost. That's when we heard from the underground mall for the first time. And yet we have not heard back from them, even with a NOFA, so I think that's interesting.
Sorry for, at those training sessions we had at the Snows Library, I was very surprised. I don't know if you guys, anybody listened to it. Matt Cole basically said he would think twice about doing it again here in Orleans because the cost and how expensive it was to take on right here on Main Street. So that was an aha for me. So I think you're absolutely right that we need to, one of our former members who's advocating, you know, to get as much affordable housing here, says he would think twice about doing it here again in Orleans. That, you know, that's something we gotta be very concerned about.
And I think as our zoning continues to change and progress, that's another key factor.
Is there something that we're doing, based on your comment, is there something that we're doing different in Orleans that other towns are not, that would suggest why we don't get a broader interest?
I mean, I wouldn't say that there's anything we're not doing or doing incorrectly. I'd say that one of the things, at least in our immediate neighborhood of Brewster, in Eastham, is we are searching out more projects. We are trying to bring in more projects than they are, so automatically that's a higher cost. If they're looking at different projects that they could bid on, that they could accept in the surrounding towns, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tom is right. It's very expensive. It's an uncertain market. You know, a small project like this, you tack on the requirement to, put a deed restriction on there, do an affirmative fair
Net
housing
zero,
marketing
all that
plan,
stuff.
ongoing tenant selection and monitoring requirements. I mean, most folks of a typical profile don't have the capacity, or in this case, I think the interest to take on those requirements for a project that doesn't have an outstanding cash flow at the end of the day. That really the typical profile of a developer who might be interested in that is one whose core mission is to provide affordable housing.
Alexis, I think you said it well. I think we should put this on a future agenda. It's a very important topic, and we might have to have a separate meeting come March or April, whatever, on this topic, because this is gonna be with us for a while, I'm afraid. And if we have these aggressive goals again with the 10-year plan, I think we have to come up with, some creative thinking as to how we're gonna, get around this very difficult subject.
Well, and it doesn't link directly, but it links to something that Fran said about, when we're looking at developing further downtown, these issues are no doubt going to come up. And I think we'd be wise to not deal with them when they come up, but to have some framework for addressing them, long before, so we're better prepared to just do that, address them.
Jennifer, question?
I was just wondering, in other towns on the Cape, I haven't seen any new names that are different than the people who develop in Orleans. I haven't seen other towns appeal to someone else for development. We had POA, we've had,
Yeah, there are a couple who have worked in Wellfleet and Provincetown, but the housing community is a small one, and we all talk to each other and sort of know everybody knows who everybody is. So they know when we have opportunities, and we watch their opportunities.
doesn't feel like somebody out there has got their finger on a different pulse.
No.
All right, so we need a vote on an award.
Unless there are any other questions, yes, we would be looking for a vote to issue a notice of award to housing assistance, and then the next step would be negotiation of a development agreement, essentially to put in black and white all of the smaller pieces and how things might get resolved and work towards transfer of that property. And just noting that should you vote in the positive, then we would ask the select board to put that, put that as an agenda item at their meeting, because we would need their vote as well under the trust bylaw.
Do I have a motion to issue a notice of award to Housing Assistance Corporation and negotiate a development agreement?
So moved.
I have a motion, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we would like to send that to the select board.
Thank you.
Nice job, Elizabeth.
Thank you all. Big step. And if anyone is interested in seeing the property, happy to take you through there. Just reach out, please.
All right, further updates from Elizabeth Jenkins.
Thank you. I did not put it on the agenda as a further executive session. Happy to answer questions, but just wanted to let you know we were not able to pursue further the conversation about land acquisition that we had at last executive session. Essentially, the baseline things that the trust were looking for could not be accomplished. So we'll see. I saw the property on the market. We'll continue to keep an eye and circle back if there's opportunity there. No updates on the NOFA. It's out there, and I know it's out there. I've gotten the calls from a couple of other communities who liked it and wanted to know how we were marketing it and how it was going. But that's all on that. I will make sure you have an updated balance sheet at your next meeting to finally reflect the Old Tote transaction, although it was factored in and encumbered prior to award. Not much new. We do have a new mixed-use, small mixed-use development on site plan, so I will get that development report updated for you as well. And no new update from rental assistance, except for we do have 10 people participating, and I just did another postcard run to provide to our updated rental registration list. So theoretically, people renew their rental registration at the beginning of the year, so I'll have a new list, and we'll make sure to send that out to all the tenants who are on that, as well as landlords who are on that rental registration list going forward. But I've got a stack if anybody wants to take a few and help spread the word on that program.
Go ahead.
I saw in the minutes some discussion about some towns offering 500 in rental assistance versus our 300. Is that something you think is a good idea, or?
I think we should run a year of the program and evaluate how it's going. But yes, Lower Cape CDP did host a roundtable of all the Lower and Outer Cape communities. I think there were 8 of us who were running rental assistance programs, all either administered through Housing Assistance or Homeless Prevention Council. And yes, we were at the lowest end of subsidy that we were paying per month. So we pay up to $350 per month. I want to say Provincetown was funding even closer to $600 a month maximum. But I will have those notes. I actually talked to Amanda about it today. She said we'll have those notes by the end of the week, and I can provide a summary of that discussion just so you can all see sort of how the programs compare across towns, and when it comes time to evaluate, that we can use sort of their successes and their lessons learned to evaluate our program going forward.
We can go up to 15 participants, is that right? We expanded it to?
We expanded it, yeah, and it's flexible, but theoretically, yes, 15 participants. We have 10 now. We had a maximum of 12 at one point, but folks move and things like that.
Go ahead, Fred.
The select board just passed a child care initiative, which I thought was pretty forward-looking and probably very useful. Now, I don't know, does anybody know if that is for property owners only, or could it be for renters as well?
Residents, I think it's
Residents.
anybody
Just
who's
as
in
long as you're a
Orleans
resident.
Correct.
Well, this is an example, I think, of, to your question about is our subsidy kind of competitive or at the right level? When you have these other programs layered into that, with people who have families, suddenly that doesn't, the rent subsidy may not be all that important as something like this could be powerfully important. So I'm trying to, put this thought together properly, but the whole idea about housing is kind of holistic. I mean, if you can help people make their lives more affordable, if they're a tenant, it may be we try to get the rent at the right price, at the right place through the development efforts we're involved in, or rent subsidies, or childcare. It all adds up to it's easier for me to live here, and if you get somebody into a place. So I think we should be mindful of that as those things are going on, and I hope the town is kind of thinking about the total package. And I'd like to ask one other question. Is anyone aware of any initiatives by any of the towns or discussions at our town government about directed efforts for housing assistance for that kind of professional list of police, fire, health professionals, that sort of thing? I mean, directed efforts to get housing help for them at all? I mean, whether it's a larger initiative with a bunch of towns, or whether it's Orleans, or whether they've heard of any in any other towns.
So yes and no. So right now, certainly I think anytime we have income eligible housing opportunities available, I think we do a really great job of marketing them to our own. So I do think there's some benefit there, but there are obviously fair housing, a way that all of these income restricted units have to be administered under fair housing, where everybody has sort of equal opportunity and access. So they would be entered into a lottery system the same way anybody else would be, and they are treated, under the rules of local preference like anybody else would be. But it is an excellent transition into number 6, if we're done with rental assistance, into the sort of new world of the Seasonal Communities Act, which passed as part of the Governor Healy's Affordable Homes Act in 2023. There had been a council that had been meeting, and that council has issued draft regulations. I did put them in your packet, just if anybody is curious and interested in digging into these further. And while it was not necessarily what was on my list to talk about today, one of the components in the new Seasonal Communities Act and the associated regulations are housing preference for essential public employees. So the ability, so for example, when we do run a lottery for new units, or if we are developing new units, we can look at providing specific preference to essential public employees like police and fire. So yes, recognizing that seasonal communities are unique in being able to attract and retain essential public employees, there is a new, an entirely new set of benefits coming down to help address that category of workforce. So stay tuned, more to come. I'm sorry, Alexis, I didn't mean to hop agenda items,
that's
so I'm happy to back up or keep
Oh,
going.
I think
No,
we're in a good
Segue.
spot. Yeah, and, you know, Elizabeth, your point is also what I was going to mention to Fran is, that also continues into the conversation that we had about two trusts, between the affordability levels, because not with teachers, but with police, fire, you know, and the overtime is often what excludes them from income restricted. You know, it's a certain way on paper, but then overtime, again, not teachers are necessarily,
They don't get
restaurant.
paid for overtime.
no. But now as we continue, not only with income eligibility requirements in the trust discussion, but the year-round trust discussion as well. Elizabeth, I don't know if you have any more information from the Seasonal Communities Act about that. I don't.
Well, I don't, but we wanted to, I think, bring this conversation to you directly. So we do have these draft regulations, comment period closed October 31st. So we anticipate that they will be final regulations shortly. But they do provide guidance on establishing year-round housing trusts. So again, we regulate based on income eligibility. This would be ability to regulate based on tenure, and we're actually ahead of that because we incorporated a lot of this sort of framework into the new zoning that we have, requirements for deed restricted year-round housing for new development that comes forward. But it does allow communities to establish year-round housing trusts, much in the sort of the same framework as affordable housing trusts. And this is modeled after towns like Provincetown. So they, under home rule petition, have had a separate year-round housing trust in their community for years now that essentially works through separate non-CPA funding sources and acquires deed restrictions and funds projects. So I think looking forward, there's strong interest from town leadership in essentially expanding I think the power and the reach of our ability to support not just affordable housing, but housing for the seasonal workforce in support of year-round communities. And if we do move forward in this, it's clear that one of the options is to either set up separate trusts or to add the powers of the year-round housing trust to an existing affordable housing trust. It is, in fact, here written very explicitly that a trustee of the trust may serve on other municipal boards or committees, including but not limited to boards of trustees, specifically Affordable Housing Trust Board of Trustees. So it's written in here very clearly, black and white, that they do. They do anticipate that some communities may want to have just one trust, where, for example, Provincetown runs two. So in speaking with the town manager, and I'm inferring from that the interest of the select board, you know, they would like to, as soon as these regulations are final, to begin setting up these powers and duties. And so I wanted to have that conversation with you all first and get your take on essentially assuming the powers of a year-round housing trust in addition to an affordable housing trust and/or setting up a separate body.
Any thoughts right off the bat? I know it's a lot of legalese to look through here in the draft regulations.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the Affordable Housing Trust could also be the year-round trust,
Correct.
which seems preferable in ways because it's hard enough to get enough members of this trust. Oh my gosh, if we had 2 trusts going, we could be in trouble.
I mean, that's my instinct as well, and I think, more of anything an accounting challenge, but one this trust already deals with. I mean, we have non-CPA funds, CPA funds, and then we would have sort of a third bucket or a blended bucket of year-round housing funds. So we already sort of manage two buckets already, and maybe it's more of a sort of philosophy of how we want to approach housing and funding specific projects than it is about the accounting going forward. I personally like to see a blend of different opportunities in projects, but there are different schools of thoughts.
And our 10-year plan really addresses both, right?
It does.
So it's not that our mission would really be wildly different.
Right.
Different trusts.
Is there any intelligence on what the pros and cons of each approach are that we could?
Not really, because this is brand new. Again, not brand new for maybe Provincetown and Nantucket, perhaps, but for a broader subsection of community.
One thing comes to mind, which is if an item of business comes up for one trust, would you have to temporarily adjourn your meeting to convene a meeting of the other trust in order to take care of that business? Because you're talking about 2 different entities, legal entities, if you're
If
voting.
you had 2 instead of 1.
Yeah, exactly.
I have kind of I'm not saying I'm for or against either, but kind of like the practical questions that come up are, we've seen sort of this narrative shift on town meeting floor of, we ticked the box for affordable housing, we need attainable. But I think and the lived experience as someone who rents, it was hard to find a market rate rental. We do need those. But from working with people struggling day to day, I think, it sort of depends on what our surveys are showing and who we're reaching in advocacy and who we're asking, because if we're going by what people are saying on town meeting floor alone, specifically, we have to acknowledge that whether intentional or not, that is an exclusionary meeting, and a lot of the people who depend on affordable housing are not represented and do not have a voice or a seat at the table for a number of reasons. So I guess that's a long-winded way to say, my only concern would be with the one trust is whatever's trending, do we lose the other piece by the wayside? And is there a way to put some sort of checks and balances to make sure that this is kind of not all 200% AMI or whatever, and not all 30%, but that because I kind of think it needs to be a yes and we are kind of seeing a less discussion about the deeply affordables right now.
Other thoughts?
Maybe we could meet from 4 to 5 as one and 5 to 6 as another.
We don't have to decide, sorry.
The subject of funding is ever present in our discussions, and Fran always seems to be advocating appropriately and with, thank you, our desire or our need to look for other sources of funding than those that we've been pursuing over the years. Is there a basis for having 2 trusts based on projects with different sources of funding that would then have possibly a different trajectory in their role and responsibility and planning, long-term planning?
So yes and no. Again, we are already balancing that uniquely in that many trusts out there are funded exclusively through Community Preservation Act funds. So they are dealing with sort of one set of rules and one way of doing things. this trust for a long time has had the benefit of half of your pot being general fund. And so, being able to have a lot more flexibility and freedom to do creative projects. So I think a lot of that is already built in. Would there be another component of that, if we were going to expand the scope of the trust? Absolutely. I mean, and yet to see whether those two things work together or not. In terms of funding sources, there is a big push still to link up the real estate transfer fee to the seasonal communities designation. That did not get traction. The sort of tax on $1 million plus real estate transactions, a small percentage of that going into year-round housing trust, just sort of didn't get traction in the larger bill. But there's been a more recent push to, again, try to use that as a mechanism to fund local or even regional year-round housing trusts. So that conversation is still ongoing, but in terms of long-term funding sources, I mean, that has been the one that has sort of been a partner to this year-round housing trust discussion.
Go ahead, Mallory.
Just a clarity, the regional, is that an idea, or does that exist anywhere?
It does not exist yet, but it is clearly, if you read your draft regulations, it's clearly contemplated, and in that there is an ability not just to have a local housing trust, but to participate in a regional housing trust as well. So much like we have a regional sort of system for funding wastewater through a set of tax, my assumption would that be that should we get a real estate transfer fee, there would be the ability to participate or opt in or out of in a regional body as well.
I have kind of a follow-up question. I don't know that there's an answer. We kind of see this regional approach where, like, 95 Lawrence Road, Lawrence Hill, they asked other town CPCs for funding. So this year Orleans gives them, and then next year they give Orleans. So maybe there's something to this approach, and I
Until
guess.
this year.
Yeah. I guess how would that even come to fruition, is my question.
So again, I think the framework is here in the regulations, and it would take that sort of regional push, likely from the county or the commission, to be able to establish that entity. Again, I think when we look at the wastewater management fund and the short-term rental tax, that's sort of a good parallel to look at. But I think it's a conversation that would happen, together with the funding source. Do I agree personally that housing is a regional issue, and then that one that we should be working on collectively? Absolutely. How if that funding source came about, how that money would be administered both locally and regionally is a bigger policy conversation.
Go ahead, Susan.
This might be a strange question, but are there any towns that have set up a nonprofit group to raise money for affordable housing?
So not
No,
towns,
not
but if you look
Not
at
a town, but
not towns, but if you look at, say, Nantucket, I mean, there are several, Nantucket and the Vineyard, there are several island not-for-profits that are working in both of those places very actively.
just curious as to whether there'd be much traction in something like that for individual donors.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think we look at land conservation trusts as a very similar, there are a lot of private, not-for-profit land trusts out there doing conservation work. We just don't have, I'm not saying they don't exist elsewhere, because they do, but we don't have one other than housing assistance, who plays sort of a different role, but is, as Fran noted, getting into more of a, doing more of a development push as of late. So that's the profile that I see.
We have been the beneficiary of donations, smaller, I believe they're about $10,000
And
a year. They have not come through in the past few years, to my knowledge, but, also thinking about just what you were talking about, some of the nonprofits like Lower Cape Outreach, CDP, Homeless Prevention Council, where, because we are a town, like municipal, they are our partners in us sort of funding them in their different projects, rental assistance, that type of thing, but doesn't necessarily work the other way. They do our advocacy, they are a big partner of that for us, but the money part is different. All right,
How much did
Sorry,
we
we're
just-
all, oh,
How
I'm
much did we
sorry.
just get awarded from CPC? 300,000?
$300,000.
And we asked for, how much?
700, you got 300.
And we have no ability to challenge that.
Last Thursday at the public hearing, you could have gone and asked, but no, it's
That's
decided.
So it's a one time a year, the opportunity to challenge.
It does have to be, it does have to go on the town meeting warrant, be approved at town
It's a
meeting.
broken system right there, if you have a chance once a year to, because I mean, if we have a 10-year, I'll go off on a tangent now too here, right? But if we have a 10-year goal to build X amount of properties that are affordable, and the key area that's delegating off money is not represented in that, is not part of that, I mean, they signed off on that, didn't they, when we put our 10-year plan together?
Not CPC, no.
So why aren't they signing off on that then?
Well, they have 4 areas that they support, and so housing is one, so some years we've gotten nothing.
I know,
So-
that's a problem then.
Yep.
Community Preservation Act requires that only 10% of their revenue is spent on any area. So in the past several years, almost 50% of their revenue has gone to affordable housing, but they have some other priorities this year, and so it's a lesser percentage than it has been.
I don't,
And I will just say, when we made the request, it was a very difficult
It was,
presentation. And, it's difficult when I don't attend every CPC meeting, but, we are still fighting
and
the
it,
education of what affordable housing is and who it's serving. And so, so that, I'm grateful that we got $300,000, and I was somewhat surprised that we got $300,000. So,
how often do they meet?
Hmm?
How often do they meet?
monthly, but not next month now that the vote's complete.
And is that an open meeting?
You can always
you
come
can
to a public comment.
yep.
It would not be a bad idea for the trust to do some education with some committees, maybe? It's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to Alexis. You were there with me, in making that presentation. I think the conclusion is right, that, outreach and education on housing needs and who we're serving, I felt like we were back at the beginning of that conversation.
And we have made, as someone who has
Framework.
been on this board since we started, I stood up at town meeting in favor of this board, we have come an extraordinarily long way of people understanding what this is and what we accomplish, and then that, sitting in that chair, felt like people had not been around for the past 7 years.
So you guys you were at the last meeting, both of you?
We made the
Alexis
presentation.
and I
for the-
presented.
Oh, I thought
Fran
we
was
couldn't
there
get
as
people there, I'm
No,
sorry.
no, this was in December,
Yeah, I mean, this past meeting, did anybody go at all from our group?
Hearing
the
now.
public hearing. I was at school.
Yeah, I was away, I tried to get back, but I couldn't make it, shit, okay, so nobody was there to,
Just to back up what you're saying, I was there too, and I was a little taken aback by some of the questions. They seem to be coming from a place of not high information. And even questions about, density and height restrictions, and they're worried about that, and worried about too many apartments. So there really is a, where we wind up in 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know, but Very definitely, we need to be, when we have an opportunity to talk about this stuff. I don't think they were aware of, for example, the demand for the recent properties have come on the market. You know, the lotteries are vastly oversubscribed in terms of looking in terms of renters looking for a place to live. So, just one thing, just a little bit of a factoid. The Human Services Advisory Committee funded Housing Assistance Corp last year a grant of $10,000 on fiscal '26, and they're asking for a similar amount this year. So the town has given them money also.
All right, I think continuing on that conversation, outreach and education efforts, housing resource fair.
I just back up. I want to give a quick update on Seasonal Communities Grant Program.
Sorry.
Because one benefit that we have gotten out of accepting the Seasonal Communities designation, we did that at annual town meeting last year, was that they did open a formula grant round in the middle of December. We put in an application through the town manager's office, planning department put in an application through the town manager's office. First week in January. Essentially, the rules were that these had to be projects that supported housing or year-round housing in your community, either planning and zoning or capital or other housing initiatives. Again, sort of formula grant. Our formula was $175,000 based on, again, our acceptance, number of communities that accepted, and population. We made the full ask for $175,000 and put in 2 applications. One for $10,000 to support development of a year-round housing trust and to have these continuing conversations going forward. And should the regulations be final by annual town meeting, to move that forward at the May town meeting warrant. Again, pending discussion of how we're going to do this. And the remainder, $165,000 we put in to support the Old Tote Road project that the trust was funding, knowing that we had just closed. We were closing on the date that the grant applications were due. The timing was impeccable, and we haven't heard back in terms of being awarded that or ensuring it's eligible, but the town did move to support the trust in supporting 2 year-round housing units on that project.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes. So sorry, moving into outreach and education, knowing, as Susan does and Scott does, that you are kind of playing the dual role of Housing Committee and Housing Trust. I think it's important to make sure that we are thinking about how we support outreach and education forward. We can and should obviously have those continuing conversations about outreach. But I was in an event with the Brewster housing coordinator, and she had mentioned that their housing, their affordable housing committee was having a conversation about having a housing resource fair. And we got to talking about perhaps hosting one jointly. So essentially an outreach session to those who have housing needs in our community or other social service needs, providing sort of an open house to connect individuals in need with resources. Brewster's done this before, Provincetown has done this before. I have never done this before, so I thought it would be great to sort of start out an effort like this in partnership with Brewster. They talked about it at their meeting last Thursday. They were very open to hosting an event like this. A lot of the times, and now I'm learning, communities do this when they have big lotteries open. So, lesson learned. It would have been great to do this last fall, but good to be able to partner and piggyback. And we'll pursue that and look for volunteers from this committee or others, maybe formally from our housing committee, to work on that effort going forward.
Awesome. Do they have a timeline in mind?
We don't. We literally just had a sort of initial conversations, but we were thinking probably sometime in the before summer,
Okay.
Late spring, early summer.
I was just gonna say I'd volunteer to help you with the logistics of that.
Would be excellent. Thank you.
All right. Moving on, board membership and recruitment. So this is something that, we were discussing just, so as I mentioned last meeting, unfortunately, Maria resigned. And so we were one member short, now we're 2 members short, because we were a board of 9, which is a little bit unusual. But just thinking about, I don't know of any committees in the town of Orleans that have a line out the door with applications, but we are not one of them. And so this was just supposed to be kind of a quick talking session about ways that we think that we can recruit people, because people know who we are now for the most part, and continuing having a varied perspective on the board. I have mentioned before having builders, architects, someone like that. We had Chair Cole in the past, and even before him, a man named, I believe his name was Greg Delory, who was an architect. He was one of the founding members of the trust as well. So just any other types of ideas about neighbors or any type of outreach we can do, not necessarily a mailer or something like that, but just in the day-to-day conversations.
Can past members after X amount of time come back on?
I believe they only have to sit off for 1 year,
1 year.
I believe. Sure.
Well, first off, it's a great idea. I know from experience how hard recruitment is, right, Frank? Maybe we should take this up again when we get down to number 10, item B, about trust roles, responsibilities, and opportunities, of having some carve-outs of within the board that we have, some separate groups that can take on specific initiatives. One could be other forms of financing, another could be recruitment, where, there's more of a group effort involved, but also making it appear more attractive to people that might be interested in having a diverse set of responsibilities that we are carrying out, rather than just what we're doing presently. Not to criticize what we're doing presently, but if we had within the trust separate groups that were looking at new sources of funding, and one that was looking at recruitment, and another that's communications, or whatever those key elements are that we really kind of need to address, I think we'll get further if we have some cohesion around efforts to do that. Otherwise, these subjects come up monthly or bi-monthly, and they kind of really don't go anywhere.
Other thoughts? Yeah.
Scott, are you thinking about groups that would be sort of friends of the trust, or all board members?
No, it doesn't. I don't have a specific
Role.
organizational plan in mind, but just recognizing that recruitment is an issue. Different sources of funding are issues. You could probably go through 5 different issues that we have, where greater attention to them would deliver more value. I'm just guessing at that, but generally, if you put more people focused on achieving something specific, your chances of getting it accomplished are going to be better than if you don't.
I think it's great, and I think, the work that Sharon did was an
Right.
amazing example. It was a mix of folks who were on the trust, and then folks who didn't necessarily want to serve or have the time to serve on a trust, but came together, to work on a specific project, got it, achieved a goal, and then, now, moving on to other pieces. So I think there are different models for different efforts that we could use going forward.
Is there a way to have members from other town committees be a member as well?
Yeah, they can
Other town
apply.
committees, not other towns or other towns?
No, this town. I just think, going back to finance or planning or,
Well, we have liaisons. I believe that gentleman was our liaison from the finance committee.
Roger?
Or is he,
He's,
No,
maybe it's Lynn then? We do have
Members-
liaisons who don't sit on the board, but they are aware of what we're doing. Go, finish your thought. I apologize.
no, yeah, no, you lost me when you said that, because I don't, do they just get notes from our meetings? They watch the video after the fact, maybe, or?
During.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's typically how it works at
How a liaison
planning
works.
board, for example, yeah. If they're not full members, they watch and report back.
Have you gotten any feedback from liaisons last year? Have you gotten any feedback from liaisons?
Well, I mean, besides, I think obviously we had some collaborating conversations around things like in specific issue areas, like the stretch code, for example.
Okay, just curious.
But that's really their role, unless there's something
Yeah,
pressing.
okay.
And Tom, finance committee members aren't allowed to serve on any other committee formally.
Right, but that's the only committee, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's the only one
Thank you,
that's
yeah.
single.
I just think there's so much, go ahead.
Oh, no, it was something different. Finish it.
Right.
Go ahead.
I just think there's so much going on to get these properties to, from, initial discussion to conclusion that, it seems like it's taking, my impression, year 4 here, 3, whatever the heck it is, it's taking more and more to have to jump through hoops to get a process completely done. That's just my impression only. And I just wish more people were on the team versus asking the team questions at the 11th hour. I just feel like, to me, and maybe that's why I'm on this, I joined, but this is really important for the future of this community, having affordable housing. I mean, really important. And
Go ahead, Mallory.
It was just thinking back to when you said maybe not mailers, like, is that like something that's a heavy lift financially, or, because it seems like an easy way to reach a lot of people. I was just curious about that.
I mean, we have not had huge success with mailers in terms of getting people to participate in our programs, so I was hesitant to use a mailer, like, use a cost to recruit people, but if that's
I wasn't
that's what
sure.
people think would
Good to
work, then I'm all for it. I'm also, on the end of my tenure on this board, this is my 7th year, I'm phasing out, so, these conversations that are gonna happen past May and have an effect past May, I'd really, like to.
That's good
move
to know
forward.
that they weren't effective. I was just wondering what the reasoning was, because it'd be good to target people with lived experience who are renters.
Well, and that's something like, if you're receiving one of these, aren't you kind of curious about the board that's offering it to you? Go ahead, Scott.
well, going back to when we had the committee, one of the initiatives that we were trying to put forward, but were unable to because we couldn't get quorum, was an assessment of looking, I'm going back to recruitment, and saying, well, okay, recruitment generally gets you general skills. If we did a concerted effort to say, well, what skills do we need? I mean, we don't just want warm bodies up here. We want people that have specific skills or specific interests that can then, be engaged in kind of addressing those things. So I'd like to go back, and maybe it's short of a proposal at this stage, but say, why don't we figure out what skills, traits, and character even do we need and are we looking for to populate the board? We'll have a better, clearer idea of that, which would allow us to then specifically go out and recruit against
I think that's
real
why
needs.
it's on the future agenda, is maybe we need that kind of discussion. Sorry.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, a thought, that there's probably a population of people who've served on committees in the town and have rotated off. So they're either in an one-year interregnum, or they may have just kind of drifted off, but they've shown interest. In other words, that would be, they would sort of stand out from the general population as in terms of potential members, and we could easily get their names, I would think, and contact them directly, or look at them and maybe make some maybe create a list of people we think might fit the group, and directly invite them, directly contact them, instead of a general outreach.
Susan?
It's interesting. I remember when I first joined the board, I saw an ad in the paper talking about openings on different committees, and maybe it said a little bit about it. And I remember I was one of 3 for one position. We had to come and be interviewed and give a little speech here, and it was not that long ago. But
And
I
that's still
do-
the process.
Yeah, even if you're the only
Yep.
one. Okay.
Yep, you have an interview.
That would have
before
been
the
nice.
select board.
Do we advertise in the Chronicle or?
I thought Molly did.
Yeah, I know that there's general outreach that happens for all vacant board positions. And I know there have been some discussions on the townwide level about, creating a search committee and perhaps having a less intimidating process for folks to have to go through if they're interested in joining. But those are larger townwide conversations.
I believe there are social media posts as well about vacancies.
It's on the website too, right?
Yeah, and again, that's just a general volunteer recruitment.
I think an invitation is a powerful inducement, to be personally invited by somebody to consider something. I think that can be an influencing act, so.
And I think, it's so easy now because they can watch the videos online.
Right.
They can either tune in live on their television or watch it online, which is something that comes up in the select board interview. Watch the videos or the meetings. Do we want to say, am I gonna give everyone homework and we have to talk to 2 people about potential membership before our meeting in February?
Yeah. Is it possible to maybe have a flyer or something, and the affordable housing units that the town or HAC manages, they could send sort of an e-blast to residents so that they're made aware, and that could bring in more people with
Yeah, we've
lived
had
experience.
that before.
Yeah, we have that rental registration list, so it's a great way to be able to tackle.
Idea.
Right.
And I
You have homework and I'm gonna check.
I think pursuant to what you said, Scott, I think it'd be also interesting to further discuss the idea of kind of specialized subgroups, where a trust member might always be at that group meeting, but others may not be attending every general meeting, but focused on, I don't know quite how that would look, but focused on alternative funding mechanisms or,
That's where I was going with my comment previously, trying to say, just get a little more communication amongst the groups.
some people don't really want to come to a monthly meeting.
Right.
They're kind of meetinged out, but
Yeah. And that's the other part, is it's a volunteer. I
Yeah.
know we were very spoiled for a long time with Chair McLennan and the amount of time he was able to put in, and unfortunately, I am not able to put in that time. So,
But if we had our agendas, and, you do a good job, and Jennifer, having, what we're gonna cover and when, if we got other people joining and just say, do it via video, and we're gonna bring you on sometime between, 4:30 and 4:45, or just something more specific, I think people would be a lot more open than having to come down here and talk for 10 minutes on a certain topic. I think we could do a better job with that, that's all. If we wanted to get other areas.
well, we do that when we do have guests.
Yeah, no, without question, but I'm saying we wanted to have permanent, almost like permanent members who weren't permanent members, where I was going.
And have them on the agenda for,
Really don't have anything at the top of my mind. Let's just say for planning. If we're really going back, planning was a big thing last year, 18 months ago? It was a big, big deal, right? We had people coming in here asking for our opinion and so forth. So if we had just an associate from the planning group that was here talking to us about where we fit in with the housing part, with the big 10-year plan for the town. I'm making maybe a corny example here on the spot. But I just think there's things like that that are, you know, we could do a better job with. Personally, without getting myself in trouble here, the finance thing to me is out in left field. We got major work ahead of us there. Major work ahead. And it's hard because we don't really have a lot of control with the finances, where the money comes from, right? But can we do a better job? Yes, I think we can, and I think we have to. But it'd help maybe if we got some direction from the finance. And I know they can't be a part of this committee, but maybe getting someone to join us every now and then for 10 minutes to give us some thoughts or something. Anyways, I'll stop there before I get dangerous here. But I'd like to have some input from other areas, that's all.
And I think that was part of the idea, wasn't it, behind the round table?
If Andrea were here, she would definitely be bringing up the round table, yes.
This would be nice.
Yeah, it was the idea that we all have sort of our own expertise
pie.
and focus, and how do we, what are some tools we can use to put this together? Where maybe it's a separate meeting, or maybe it's, you know, cross-pollinating each other's meetings, but I think the concept's the same.
Is-
To kind of push that a little bit, I was lucky enough to attend a housing roundtable a few years ago in Provincetown with like planning board, select board, affordable there was a ton of boards there, the room was packed, and it was an absolutely wonderful experience. And they kind of broke down silos, and they made a lot of progress as a result of that. So.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Scott?
I had a comment, but the question is, with respect to recruiting, is there any way to relax some of the requirements? When I was doing it last time, recruiting that is, there were a number of people that were interested. They were business owners in Orleans, but they were not residents. And so, not being a resident, they couldn't participate. But they were keen to participate and very interested in participating, but couldn't because of the residency requirement. Is there any way that we could possibly relax something like that? To expand the universe of people that we might be able to attract? Because given, you know, our issues and their issues, having a business owner on our board, whether they were resident or not, would certainly make a lot of sense.
A business owner in town, Scott?
Yes.
I can think of some local ones that would be really good.
No, I approached several, but they were not residents of Orleans.
Well, that's,
So it
yeah,
was, that was the problem.
Yeah, I don't know that there's an easy answer to that. I think, like, the Economic Development Committee would probably, that they might have looked at that as well, because, they are business owners,
Right.
so,
I can look, I can look.
yeah.
It's not totally unheard of. I know
I mean, I
at least
understand
one
that's-
trust that has granted
But,
dispensation
you
to
know,
a member.
What, I mean, a business ownership is pretty close to being a resident.
A lot of investment in
Actually
the community.
contributing
isn't
probably
it?
a lot more to the community at large than is a regular resident, so.
Do you think that any of these people would still be interested if, for example, they had they joined the committee as a non-voting member? Because they'd have a chance to speak out,
Yeah.
hear
Well,
what's
they could
going
do
on.
that
the thing
now
is
by
really,
attending.
we don't lack opinions.
Yeah.
Right? So a chance to speak out is not necessarily the greatest recruitment tool that I can think of. But expertise in a specific subject matter that is relevant to us, it would be.
Yeah, I would just say it doesn't all have, we don't always have to work through the monthly meeting format. Like having topic-specific initiatives where we can pull in talent and expertise, I think it's a great model.
All right,
Just a thought.
yeah. We'll look into the residency. Just keeping an eye on the time. Anything further before approval of minutes? Do I have a motion to approve minutes? Susan, you said you had a couple of fixes.
Oh, so I wasn't at the last meeting, yeah. And I just had one little follow-up regarding the snow lifetime learning.
Okay.
This is kind of discouraging, but we don't have a place in offering classes in the winter, spring. I'm still waiting to hear exactly what transpired there. So I'm gonna be pushing again for another fall session. But it's not clear whether they didn't think we had enough participants, or we had negative feedback, or the head of the Lifetime Learning series at Snow Library. Or whether we didn't get a proposal in fast enough. I'm not quite sure. But, you know, all I was told is there were lots and lots of classes being offered.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, sometimes entertainment wins out over other important topics, but
Yeah.
Entertainment always.
Let us know if there's any way that we can support that, or
thanks,
figure
yeah.
out another avenue through the Council on Aging or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Just an idea.
Is it a venue that we need, or is it a?
Well, you know, it was an easy forum for us in that they do all the publicity, right? They send it out to their membership. They have all the technology set up, so it, you know, it's kind of nice
Yeah.
that way. So I think we'll still work toward that in the fall. But I think there might be other things we could do in terms of outreach through like COA.
Yeah.
Do most classes charge, like, there was a small fee, I think, that.
Yeah, it's like $10 contribution.
Right, but I'm saying,
It's
do
optional.
most classes do that?
They all do.
They all do. Corny things like that sometimes turn people off, that's the only reason I'm asking.
Yes, I mean, I don't think it's
I-
enforced, you don't have to pay the $10.
Yeah, okay.
Right, but if you have to pay $10 and you have to register, it might be a barrier to somebody who
Might be,
would have maybe wanted to go and felt.
Just thought I'd ask, yeah.
yeah.
Maybe just shoot for one next year? Were you trying just for one, or were you going for two?
We were trying for a series of 3, actually, 3 classes. This fall, we did 2.
Right,
So, I mean, we have plenty of material for doing at least 3, but it gets a little complicated, but
yeah.
we'll keep working on it.
Surprising.
Yeah, it was disappointing. But I'm waiting for more feedback, so I haven't gotten it yet.
So the requirements are, you have to have a venue, physical space. You have to, is there
Publicity.
publicity a requirement? Or is it just something that it was a benefit from the library? Is that, what I'm saying is, there may be churches who might have the facility. but don't have
Council on
some of the other
Aging.
things. Can we cobble together the offering, if you will, that the library provided through multiple sources?
One of the tricky things is that, as we found, we had presenters who were off-site, and they presented through the technology that was available at the library, which would be
Okay.
very
So
difficult to
that's
do.
that's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yep.
And they record everything so that people can go in the archives and watch
Gotcha.
it all.
Gotcha.
But a different kind of thing could happen in terms of focus groups or, you know,
Mhm.
general kind
Could
of
be a
information.
good citizens forum, too.
Yeah.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 16th?
Yep.
Moved,
Second.
seconded, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so opposed,
Abstain.
not voting.
Right.
So 4-0-2. All right. Future agenda items, trust roles, responsibilities, opportunities. How do you want to proceed with that?
Well, I mean, my 2 cents on the opportunities or responsibilities is for the trust specifically, for us to think about who it is that we want to recruit. What's the profile? What's the skill set? Where do we have gaps in our board? And how would we like to fill them? And then that makes at least recruiting a little bit more focused. That's just one aspect.
And relatedly, I'd like to suggest that we actually spend a little bit of time looking at our 10-year plan and kind of assessing all that's been accomplished, which is always a good thing, but what still needs to be done, and that could lead us to a conversation about who are the kind of people we need to help us with those action
I think
steps.
that's an excellent idea.
So,
Your newsletter.
um,
So we all need to have a copy of that, maybe to look at and then bring to the meeting?
so just time-wise, so our meeting would just be the project updates and then this stuff, just so everybody's.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great to do a sort of 2026 look ahead. Here's where we are in our 10-year plan. Here's what we want to accomplish. Here's
It's a
sort of
great
a work
idea.
work plan and setting meeting. I think would be an excellent
All right,
strategy.
we'll plan on that for February. Affordable housing finance, do we,
I just know we had some sort of technical assistance and education asks for that, and have some ideas of folks who could come in and sort of add value, but maybe look at doing that in March instead of February.
Is that something where, it seems to me every time we start to talk about some ideas there, we run into a regulation or a rule or something that's embodied in how the trust is formed. So do we need to actually have counsel there to lead us through those things? In other words, this is rock solid, can't be changed, or perhaps we could find a way to modify something else. I don't know. I'm just-
Yeah, I can look at that, absolutely.
yeah.
Can I suggest also, I'd like to hear what people think about this. I don't know how many people recall the town meeting, but when the discussion got started about the new, about
Zoning.
downtown and then
Development plan?
the development plan and so forth, a number of architects stood up to speak to it. And I've seen other situations, for example, when the consultant made their presentation, when they rolled that out, that there were several architects here who had comments. And I'm wondering whether, is there, I got the impression that some of these people didn't feel like they had adequate input, or whether they were even, anybody cared to hear what other architects thought about some of the design ideas that were put forward by the consulting group. And is that something that we maybe ought to think about, inviting some people to talk to us? Because we're talking about a lot of development that's going to be occurring in the coming years. And there is an issue about the aesthetics of what we're going to be financing, what we're going to be promoting. And we want to get that right so that this place continues to look livable as well as be technically livable. And I don't know, has anyone driven down Locust Lane lately?
Locust
Seen-
Road.
Locust Road, excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yes.
Seen that new development there,
Yep.
those townhouses? To me, not the most attractive rendition of, I'm sure that people will move in there, but it just seems as if there were some, I think we need to be careful that we don't go too utilitarian in all of our designs, which purely, address a bottom line figure without considering how it affects the total environment. Hence, I'm asking, does anyone think we ought to have a day or a meeting where we invite some of these people to come and talk to us?
That was my recommendation with the developers. Usually they have architects within their team, but I believe the meeting last year was for both.
Mm-hmm,
So, I mean, that was my plan, was for this year's to be the same,
yeah.
architects and developers.
Okay, so is that something that, when we're putting it together, we can invite as many as we want?
Yeah, we sent out a huge, and we only got
Okay,
3 responses,
fair enough, yeah,
but we're gonna keep trying.
yeah.
And I also think it sounds like it could be a great housing roundtable topic as well,
Yeah.
Impacting.
Mallory?
From experience, like with POA and TCB specifically, the community builders, they always are so on top of it in their community presentations because they know that's the first question. So there's always slides and slides of the Cape vernacular, local
Yeah.
houses. So those would be 2 really good people to reach out to.
Yeah.
All right. We all good? And I get a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn our meeting?
I need a second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. 6:06.